In the last video, I reviewed the Lego Movie 2, and I made a joke about Will Arnett joining Christian Bale and Ben Affleck in the Three Timers Club and saying if he did one more movie, he would then be the ultimate Batman. Even though it was very clear that I was referencing the movies, some people in the comment section felt the need to educate me on the greatness that is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman for Batman the Animated Series. Oh, thank you so much for reminding me about Kevin Conroy. It's not like I watched Batman the Animated Series when it actually premiered on television on Fox Kids. I watched the primetime special and then watched all the episodes when it came on in the afternoons, probably before some of you were even born. Not like I saw Mask of the Phantasm or was always giddy every time his voice popped up in those direct-to-DVD movies or in video games. It's not like I interviewed the man at New York Comic-Con. We've had different iterations of Batman, but for a lot of people, and I've said this before myself, sometimes their favorite Batman is you.
Thank you.
So please continue to tell me about Kevin Conroy, the person I supposedly have never heard of because of a joke that I made. Now do you see why I left, you actually spouting motherfucker? Everything is awesome! Hi, I'm Andre and I'm a black nerd, and I want to talk about a specific part of the Lego Movie 2. It's something I asked if you wanted to hear about. I want to talk about Rex Dangervest, what it made me think about in my own life, about growing up, and about geek culture and being a man or maturity in general. Hold on, I went too deep into this, way too deep. If you like that kind of thing, subscribe please. By the way, spoilers, in case you didn't realize there was gonna be spoilers in this. Spoilers. So Rex Dangervest was a character that they didn't really talk about too much when the Lego Movie 2 first started getting promoted. It wasn't until the later trailers and commercials and promotions that they started mentioning that this character was even in the movie. Also mentioned that this character happens to also be voiced by Chris Pratt, the voice of Emmett in the same movie. Rex Dangervest is basically a satire of Chris Pratt characters, particularly his characters from Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World.
Rex Dangervest, galaxy defending archaeologist, cowboy, and raptor trainer.
And it kind of makes sense because back in 2014, we didn't have Guardians of the Galaxy or Jurassic World, so we were still mostly knowing Chris Pratt from that schlubby funny guy that was in Parks and Recreation as Andy. And so it kind of makes sense for the Lego Movie to want to make fun of that, seeing how much Chris Pratt has changed from the first movie to this movie. But what's interesting about the character in the concept of the movie is, of course, he's just really tough, really rugged. He has a bunch of raptors as sidekicks. And Emmett kind of looks up to him in this respect, mainly because his friends just told him before they go off on this adventure that Emmett has not changed with the times. Everything is not awesome anymore, and he still is trying to act positive and optimistic, and everyone's telling him, you kind of need to grow up a little bit, Emmett. And that makes sense when you know that the movie is also the subconscious adventures of a teenage boy in this movie. If you remember from the first movie, we found out that a kid was playing with these Legos, and it was this whole thing about him and his dad because his dad was collecting them and the kid just wanted to play with them. So now this kid is 5 years older, he's becoming a teenager. If you've been one or remember being one or are one now, you know, you start thinking differently about things. Because when you're young and naive, you're just thinking about, oh, everything is awesome. But as you get older, you start thinking like, oh, I gotta be gritty, I gotta be real, and everything's gotta be cool, and I gotta be cool, and all this other kind of stuff. And it makes sense in this movie that they sort of hit on that a little bit with Emmett and Rex. Emmett is the guy that he was, Rex is the guy that he thinks he's supposed to be. And I won't get too spoilery in this, just in case you still haven't seen it yet, but it also makes perfect sense why they're both voiced by Chris Pratt in the relationship of Emmett and Rex. And then when you get into the fact that they're going to the sis-star system, they mention that there is a little sister who comes down in the basement with some Duplo blocks. So you have that whole brother and sister dynamic of them both wanting to play with the Lego pieces, but how do they do it? Can they do it together when you have the older teenager brother and the younger sister, and their ways of thinking about playing with the toys are completely different. Now, it's really easy to look at this and start talking about adolescence, or maybe even about gender or masculinity when it comes to growing up, but then I remember that this is the internet, so nope. But instead, I want to talk about that concept of growing up. I don't know if this was the exact idea that they were going with Rex Dangervest, but he made me think about this in my own life. Because growing up in my life, and some of you can probably relate as fellow nerds, geeks, dweebs, and dorks, you know, that growing up, you were constantly told that liking your geeky things was a sign of immaturity. I have been told on multiple occasions from parents, adults, peers, random strangers online, that I am not quote unquote mature, being told that the video games and cartoons and silly movies and toys and collectibles and things that I like growing up, even sometimes things like technology and computers and stuff like that, I was told that those were childish things. And at a certain point, you had to become a teenager or a college student or an adult and put that stuff aside, become a man and get your house, get your wife and kids, get your job, live your life. That's how you're supposed to be. That's when you know that you have become quote unquote mature. I'm not saying this is like someone did something wrong. It's just that's kind of how it went. And I mean, that's still kind of how it's seen sometimes to this day. I mean, there's even arguments happening in the news today about people who are saying, oh, these adults that like these things, they're not growing up. Is that really true? There's so many things you can see as a sign of maturity. This is not me trying to flex. This is not me trying to brag, but I just want to bring this up. Yes, I like Ninja Turtles and Smurfs and Gremlins and Care Bears and, and Power Rangers and all these different things, but I worked really hard to make sure I got good grades in school because I wanted to make sure that I had opportunities for myself after graduation. In addition to going to school and doing my homework and making good grades, I was also taking on a part-time job because money was sometimes tight in my family, so I would take on an extra job to earn some money for myself to take care of some of my own expenses or to help out. I also had volunteer work going on as well because I wanted to make sure I had some good stuff on my resume, and it also contributed to some cool stuff in the community. I applied for tons of scholarships and got enough of them to where I was able to go to college, not have to get any loans, which was nice. Then while in college, I took on internships and part-time jobs to make sure I had some extra money in my pocket in addition to going to school and doing all the work I had to do at school to get good grades so that way I could graduate from college and again have opportunities after graduation. Took on jobs to be able to support myself, even if that meant having to move to other states, other areas of the country to be able to do the jobs I need to do to take care of myself, had my own place, paid my own rent. And even when I had this crazy notion of doing the childish thing of improv and comedy and acting, starting this YouTube channel, figuring out ways to make money to take care and support myself so I can have my own place with my own rent and take care of my own expenses, I'm just basically saying that you kind of have to be mature to do that. So if I'm doing that, how am I still childish because I have all this stuff behind me? Right? Again, not flexing, just making a point. There's even a couple of girls that I've met over time that were like, oh no, I can't date you, Andre. You're not mature enough. And I'm not gonna lie, but maybe one or two maybe of them came back later on and was like, oh, you know, thinking in back in hindsight. I mean, it's too late now, but I'm just saying, you know. There's a lot of different ways of being mature or immature. Sometimes some of the things that we do that are quote unquote mature end up looking immature. Like some people think drinking alcohol is mature, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you get yourself to the point where you're wasted and you do that constantly, is that mature? Just because it's a drink that 21 and up can drink? I mean, come on, think about that. But again, this is nothing against alcohol. I drink it, but don't drive. Don't drink strange drinks and drive. Spectre Gadget taught me that. That's a Twitch inside joke. If you watch me on Twitch, you would know about that joke. Twitch.tv/comedy. Just saying. If I'm doing so many things to take care of myself as a person that is mature, then I shouldn't think that I'm not mature. Yeah, there are some times where I'm gonna be goofy and silly and wacky and ridiculous. It's just sad that you can simultaneously be doing mature things, but just because you like other things, people can refer to you as immature. Now, yes, it is very, very, very possible, and we see it a lot of times on the internet, it is very possible to like these things to a point where it does become immature or childish when you're devoting so much of your time into that you're not taking care of other things. And I'm not gonna lie, there are some things in my personal life that I should be a little bit more mature about and handle a little bit better. I'm not saying I'm perfect in this situation, but I am saying that maturity does come in different forms and different levels. And that liking some crazy stuff from your childhood because it somehow makes you happy inside to think about it or experience that again is not some sign of immaturity or childishness. It's something that just makes you happy. In fact, that probably is a mature thing to know that something like that makes you happy, and yet you can still function as an adult, as a human being. So that might make you even more mature. But again, be honest with yourself. Don't just think now like, oh, Andre said I like all these things, I'm mature. No, okay. Be honest with yourself. But I remember specifically myself, and I think this could possibly be a video in itself in the future. I remember a time where I did give all this stuff up because I thought I needed to be mature, I need to grow up, I need to be an adult, and I was miserable. I didn't like it. It was horrible. It wasn't until, no joke, I restarted a Smurf collection that I started feeling better about myself and these things. Smurf saved my life, yo. Them blue creatures saved my life. And all of this came into my mind from this concept of Rex Dangervest. Rex seems like that type of character that you're supposed to be when you're older, more mature, more rugged, more cynical of the world. I remember that time period myself, having those same types of questions and sometimes making the right or wrong decisions about what I needed to do about being mature, and now realizing that sometimes the best way to be mature is to be yourself. You also see a little bit of this with Wildstyle, Lucy. She has this vision of the world where she has to be brooding and think more serious about it because of the events that happen within the world. Particularly the second time I saw the movie, it made me really think about the apocalypseburg part of this movie. So from the first movie to the second, time has passed, all destruction has happened from the brother and sister not getting along playing with the Lego toys, and it's led to Bricksburg becoming Apocalypseburg. And on the surface, it seems like, oh, it's just a funny little Mad Max parody thing that's going on here. But when I started thinking about it more, I was like, well, it's trying to be dark and gritty when dealing with Lego toys. And this made me think about something else that sometimes happens with geek culture and maturity, and the concept of trying to make our geek culture look mature to validate the fact that it's okay to like it, which I also think is silly. This is my own personal opinion, but this is where I honestly believe the whole dark, gritty reboot type of thing started to happen. We started seeing more of the things that we grew up with try to act more serious and mature in a way to accept the fact that we still like them as adults, but yet they can be seen as the same level of entertainment as the quote-unquote adult fare out there. Batman is a perfect example of this. The Adam West Batman and the Super Friends cartoons. So even something like the '89 Michael Keaton Batman movie seemed more serious of a Batman thing than the stuff I had seen before. But then when we got into like Batman Forever, Batman and Robin territory, it kind of got a little silly again. But then we were able to get the Dark Knight trilogy, and it was like, oh, now it's serious. This is serious business. This guy that dresses as a bat and fights clowns, and a guy with this on his face. That's serious. And we're still seeing this to this day. When you see these in-depth debates and thoughts and discussions and hour-long videos talking about these geek franchises, I do believe some of it is the passion of liking these franchises, or you sometimes think they like it. Sometimes you listen to these conversations and you're like, do you like this franchise anymore? But I do believe that sometimes it is people trying to emphasize the fact that there's something deep and serious about what's going on with their geek culture to validate the fact that it's okay as a grown-up to like this stuff, and I don't think that's necessary. Ironically, this is coming from a guy who's making a long video right now talking about some in-depth stuff from a Lego movie sequel. You don't need that validation. If you like it, you like it. I don't know if any of this makes sense. I don't know if it does. I may be just rambling. This is just one black nerd's opinion. Just one black nerd's opinion. Job no. But basically what I'm getting at is that, what am I getting at? You can still like all this wacky, geeky, silly stuff and still be an adult, or still be mature, or teen, or an adolescent, or tween, or whatever age you are, that there's no correlation between liking the geeky stuff that you like and maturity. And you don't need to over-validate the geeky stuff you like by trying to give it some kind of serious meaning just to make it seem like it is appropriate for you to like it. It is okay to like something that has no depth. If you like a cartoon or a TV show or a video game or a movie and there's nothing more about it than just plain entertainment value, that's okay too. And even if it has some kind of in-depth meaning and you completely missed the mark on it and just enjoy it because it's fun, so be it. That's the way I think, at least. Like I said, just one black nerd's opinion. Job no. Thanks a lot for listening to this. Like I said, I don't know if any of this makes sense at all, but it's just something that got into my brain after watching this movie, and I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. So thanks a lot to Lego Movie 2 and to Rex Dangervest for making me have these thoughts. Like I said, I would also have some other thoughts with his character in regards to masculinity, but again, this is the internet, so nope, I'm mature enough to know to leave that conversation. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I personally like making this video. I think this is the type of thing that I like to do. So if you like this sort of thing, let me know. I would love to do more of this type of stuff with movies than just plain on reviewing them. I'll still review them, but I want to have more discussions and conversations and fun stories to tell you in regards to not only the new stuff, but stuff I grew up with. I gave you a little bit of my childhood here. I would love to give you more insight if you're interested, but just let me know if you're interested. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes the algorithm or the audience doesn't let me know how deep I can go with this stuff, so I'm asking you now. There you go. I'm asking for your input. And yes, I know who Kevin Conroy is. Thank you for watching this video. If you're new here or you haven't already, please subscribe and also ring that notification to be part of my squad by the bell. I love you like a play cousin. I'm Audi 5000. Stay mature by staying immature, everybody.